Can go over a little bit about kind of the off season and where you guys at right? Where are you right now?
Yeah, so exciting time, post wrestle offs, but the summer was a tough one for me, and thank God I've got these three. It was a really productive summer for the team, training all summer. I wasn't around much, but I was getting updated by these guys, and by the time I got back involved, it was pretty obvious these guys were putting in a lot of time. Of course, I could watch online. We got a great system at the university that allows me to watch practice. Anywhere in the world, you can watch an Ohio State wrestling practice, so that was helpful. But a really good summer. We're healthy for the most part. Guys that had little dings here and there are getting healthy. I think our fan base saw we didn't have everybody in the wrestle-offs for a number of reasons. But yeah, great summer, and looking forward to starting at Clarion.
Long off season, as you mentioned. Just how does it feel to be back here with the season about to start?
Anybody want to jump in?
Go ahead.
Our lives, our timeline in our lives is based around the start of the wrestling season. So we're super excited about this team. Super excited to get the season underway. Yeah, we're ready to go.
And what kind of expectations are you putting on the team this year?
They're always high. The standard here is incredibly high. We've been one of the elite programs in the country for a long time, and that'll always be the case. And it's about each man, us helping each man live up to their full potential. So we're excited, super excited, and the standard's high.
And
yeah.
for those returning from injury, is there any updates on anybody, or are you just going to take it day by day?
You want to jump in on any updates, injury?
Yeah, sure. 125, Kilkiri and Macron. You'll see both of them at the Clarion Open. Last week we held out Kilkiri with a slight injury from wrestle-offs because we just knew that they would be able to get healthy for Clarion. At 33, Nick Bouzakis is back from the World Championships, and he will be competing at Clarion. So that wasn't an injury-related issue as to why he didn't wrestle off. 41s, you saw Mendez. 49, D'Amelio will wrestle at Clarion. Cannon will not. So he hurt his finger right in the prelim on Tuesday. So that's why we held him out of the final ones against Reeves. So, but he'll be back in shortly, week or two. Gallagher, we're going to see how this week goes. He's back. Obviously, he had a season-ending injury last year. But he is back training, wrestling live. Everything's fine. It's just, how much volume does he want to have behind him before he cuts loose. So we'll see if he'll be day to day on the decision at Clarion. But if not, he should be ready for the home opener against Chattanooga. Sasso is progressing well. He was fully recovered from the incident last year and training hard as he could. Then he had an ankle injury, so he'll be back. He's drilled yesterday and is sparring. Hasn't gone live yet, so he'll be soon here, but probably not at Clarion. So he'll be the only one really that's not at Clarion. And then Carson as well. We're just taking a little more time with him, just over with his season-ending injury last year. Very similar to Patty, but just a different. He's had more. He's a little older and had more issues with his knees. So taking a little bit more time with him, then everybody else is fine. So that's kind of the update that everybody that wasn't at wrestle-offs that are, premier guys, where they're at.
I'm curious to know, do you guys have a message or a motto that you tell your players throughout the season just to keep them focused and motivated?
I think they each have their own. That's we meet a lot with a leadership meeting with a guy named Chet, and he talks about having their own mantra. Everybody's is a little different, and whatever clicks you in, right? I would say we've had a theme of how we want to wrestle throughout the preseason. So, and that's what's the next action. That's kind of been what we've been harping on, whether that's in the hand fight, whether that's, you click into a shot and you got to finish. You're on bottom. They stop your first move. What's the next action? So if you're always chasing the next action, you're always looking to progress. You're not sticking and holding. You're not wrestling tight. So hopefully we see guys that are their wrestling is like a flurry of activity, always on the offensive. So I would say that's kind of like our team philosophy on how to wrestle. But everybody has their own individual mantra on how they need to act and compete.
Roster formation is changing. Obviously, there are different rules and things like that. How does that affect? I mean, it obviously doesn't ask about this season, but how does that affect what you do going forward with the new roster rules? And I guess I've read things, but what is your understanding about what it means moving forward to put together a 30-man roster or whatever you're allowed to have this year?
Yeah, well, the rules, obviously the NCAA has stepped in and they've made they put a standard number across the board, right, for all Division I wrestling programs. The number's 30. Now, since I've been here, we didn't have a cap initially, and then we got capped at around 35. So we've got to go from 35, right, to 30, which is tough. And we're in the midst of doing that now. Our team, we had 39 on the roster when the season started, and we've got to get down to the school. This year, we're allowed to have 33. And the rules are basically by your first competition, whatever your roster is, by your first competition. For us, it's November 3rd, Clarion. So by that date, we have to have our final roster in. And then there's no adding, subtracting. That's it. This is your roster. That's it. Someone you remove from the roster can't be added back on later. So we're going to be at 33 this year, and then we'll whittle it down to 30 next year. It's tough. It's tough. It's as a staff, right? We believe, right, there are men in this room that are capable of winning national championships. There are also men that aren't, but they're incredibly valuable to our team, and they hold different values. And unfortunately, college sports right now, there's a lot of opportunities being lost. We're not in favor of it, but we're living by the rules that there are. So we've got to get down to 33. That'll happen today, and then we'll hold tight until next August, and then we'll get down to 30.
Has there been much talk in the room amongst the guys and the coaching staff and back and forth between that? And what's the feeling like? Because people pretty much know where they're at, right? So there are guys who know where that line is and where they are relative to it. What's kind of been the feeling in the room knowing this is coming?
Well, this summer, we informed them early on, right? They knew early on that, there were no surprises. Everybody knew what number we got to get down to. And I'm sure as a student athlete, you're measuring yourself up, right, relative to the bottom group in the room, and it's tough. We're making calls right now. We're calling the parents, right, first before we meet with the guys, to let them know, just to be ready for a call at home. It's a tough situation. All these guys enjoy the sport. And most of them are here twice a day. It's going to be a big void for them. But we have a club team here that perhaps that's an option for some of them to stay in it. And of course, if you join the club team or you're finding other places to train, maybe some of them will coach at high school teams. Next year, there's always right. If you make a huge gain, right, we look at you again. And there's some really good guys that are going to get cut. But that's, it's hard, but it's just a life lesson, right? Sometimes even your best isn't good enough, and that's going to take some maturity to get through. But So.
And that said,
You guys want to add anything? What I'm saying? Jump in.
Your team is just looking at the names as deep as it's ever been. There are a lot of guys who you can put in the lineup, multiple guys at each spot, and feel pretty good about that. But what that means is there are guys that are not going to be in the lineup that could compete for a lot of teams. So what, if anything, is different when you talk to those guys, the guy that has to wait his turn? Injuries happen and all those sort of things. To keep those guys ready, how is it different talking to a group in 2024 than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Is it different at all when you have a team this deep to say to certain guys, you're not the guy right now, but keep ready?
Yeah, I take it. Well, I think what you've seen in the past, especially, last couple of years with injuries, it's very important for everybody on the team to be ready to go. If you're not ready to start and ready to make a big impact, then you're probably not at the right place. So that's kind of what we tell them to be ready to go. And I think some of the guys that will have to sit, whether they're a true freshman or redshirting and sitting, or they're sitting one of their 4 years of eligibility, I think they should have the confidence that if they're not the starter, their teammate who is starter is going to do well, and when it's their chance, they're gonna have a good chance to do well. So I think, but I mean, like I said, with all the uncertainty and the injuries and different things that happen, our guys have been pretty well prepared to jump in and make a big impact.
Jay, at the end of last season, what did you identify as, it's tough because it's 10 individual weights and 10 individual wrestlers and 33 guys now in the room, but is there an overarching thing that you looked at the end of last season where you said, this is an area of growth we need to approach as a program, and do you feel like you've made, if there is one of those, the proper amount of growth coming into this year?
I wouldn't say there's an overarching technical piece. We all need to get better at finishing the armbar. That's not it. I would just say the composition of our team is we're very deep and very balanced, and we have a lot of guys that are in the 10 through 18 range. And the bottom line is we need a few of them to jump levels and get into the All-American range, and that'll pretty much be where the crux of this team goes, right? We feel pretty good about our returning big three in Jesse, Rocco, and Feldman, and what their ceiling is, but also what your floor is too, right? It's important what somebody's floor is, and those guys score a lot of team points. But the way our tournament is set up, the NCAA tournament, is if you're not an All-American, you really don't score much. So you can have a great year, you can be 3-2 at the NCAAs, and lose in the round of 12 on a nail biter, and you scored your team 2 points. So you need All-Americans, you need high-end All-Americans, you need bonus points, and that's how you score at the NCAA tournament. So you don't really get anything but a high five if you have 7 guys lose in the round of 12. And right now we have, based on rankings, and last season we have about 7 of the 10 weight classes are right on the cusp from 10 through 20. So who's going to break through?
Obviously, the biggest dog there is Jesse, and you guys have all talked about his leadership and what he does. But having a Jesse is a product of having a Sammy and a Colin and a Luke, and going back to your guys' days here. How important is that transfer of leadership from one group to the next, understanding the standard? And you guys were all a part of that when you were here. I guess I'll ask you from a personal standpoint, when you were that guy, how did that come to you, and how did you pass it to the next guy?
Go ahead, Bo.
You take it.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I don't know. Jesse's done a great job. Jay and Logan worked with him a bunch, and yeah, he's been good. I think last year he was a little less vocal. This year, I think it's his second year. He won the title. Last year it was like he was young. He was right out of high school. When he's a true freshman, so a little less of a voice this year. I think he's just he's leading by example, and he's pretty vocal at the end of practices, during practices, and yeah, I mean when I was here too, the first year you look up to the guys, and I was looking up to Logan and just trying to do what he did, and then once you after get a year or two under your belt, you feel better about leading. But yeah, you just look up to the guys that are doing everything right, and then they kind of pass the buck to you.
I mean, to have a chance, right? I mean, an elite organization is built on people that are, you see a lot about it's not our job to motivate. We don't do a lot of motivating. Like if it's not intrinsically in you, it's like, I've frequently said what I did in college. If someone said I would give you an absorbent amount of money to go back and do what I did now, I would say no. But I loved it. It was something I was passionate about. Nobody needed to spend any time motivating me. So this group, I mean, you should come in if you're serious about what you're doing at any level. You should study the people that are elite, and you should mimic what they do. Just be a good follower. Being a great follower is really important, and we've got a lot of guys here that are followable. And Jesse's one, Rocco's another. I mean, he stepped in as a true freshman, was in the national finals. Feldman's another. So we've got a bunch of guys. Dylan D'Amelio. I mean, the culture is really strong, and any of our guys that have a chance of doing well, they're looking at them and not in another direction. What are they doing? What do I need to do? And I feel this is a really good team, a motivated team, an inspired team, and they want to do big things.
Logan, you were just overseas with Nick. How important is it for guys to make a jump maybe to a next level, to see that sort of thing, to be where other countries approach wrestling different ways, to be exposed to those kinds of things, to bring it back in here? Freestyle is a different game, but to be able to bring that back into this room to help themselves and others make the next jump.
Yeah, I mean, I would say anytime you get a chance to compete at a world championship, you get to really test your level and see. So, I mean, Nick has had a great preseason, and he wrestled. He did a lot of good things in his match, and he did a lot of things that weren't good, and ultimately lost, and saw, some areas where he needs to, maybe work on or focus a little bit. But, saw a lot of growth. And where we were at, the senior level world championships are there as well. So, you get to see, some Jordan Burroughs and different stars, right, all across the world. And, I think it's important to be able to go to those things, and it's a big step, to continue to try to make world teams and test yourself against the best in the world. And, now it's time to turn the page to folk style, and now he wants to be the best in the country.
On Nick, he's had some big wins. He can score a lot of points. He can do a lot of big things. There were also matches where they're kind of head scratchers.
Yeah.
What's for him the key to solidifying? You have to be consistent, right? You have to consistently do the right things. What's the key for him to be able to do that?
Yeah, so, I mean, probably the biggest key would be being able to focus the whole match. If he can just keep his mind and focus the whole match, he's going to have a good chance. I mean, he's got to be able to use his energy the right way. You only got so much energy, whether you're in the best shape or not that good of shape. You only have so much of it, and just kind of utilize his strengths when he can, and be able to. I don't know, like he's really good in like specific positions. He's pretty. Sometimes he's pretty wild out there, but he's pretty technical. Like when he gets in some positions, he's very elite, and he's a great finisher. But sometimes he, for lack of better words, loses his mind out there and does things that just don't make sense. So when he can kind of hone in his focus, he's very, very good. And trying to putting all those things together, he has a chance.
I just asking this question because I don't really remember, and I want to have all this down for during the season. But who are the black shirts currently in the room? I don't know if you guys have off the top of your head.
Yeah, Jesse, Dylan D'Amelio, Carson, Patty, Rocco, Ryder, Sasso,
and
Feldman. Yeah.